My brothers and sisters, let me say this loud and clear. Worry is a thief. It creeps into your heart, steals your peace, clouds your vision, and paralyzes your purpose. Worry will have you pacing the floor at midnight, doubting in the dark what God promised you in the light. But today, right now, you've got to decide that you're going to stop letting worry be the driver of your life and put God back in the driver's seat. Worry doesn't knock at the door it barges in. It takes residence in your mind, feeds on your doubts, and multiplies your fears. It's not just an emotion. It's a mindset that drains your energy, clouds your judgment, and delays your destiny. Worry creeps in through the cracks of uncertainty and builds a stronghold where confidence should live. It'll convince you that you're stuck, helpless, and surrounded, even when God has already made a way for you to walk through. Worry always starts small, a quiet whisper in the back of your mind. But if you don't address it, it grows louder, more demanding, and more convincing. It causes you to play out every worst-case scenario and magnify your weaknesses while minimizing God's power. It steals your rest, robs your focus, and makes you question what you already know to be true. It convinces you that the unknown is dangerous and that every step forward is a step toward failure. But faith is different. Faith rises up like a shield and a sword. It doesn't ignore reality. It overcomes it. Where worry sees obstacles, faith sees opportunity. Where worry hesitates, faith takes action. Faith doesn't need the full picture to move forward. It just needs a word from God. It doesn't wait for the storm to stop it, walks on water right through it. Faith steps up when fear screams loud and says, God is still in control. Faith isn't a feeling. It's a decision to trust. It's built on the character of God, not the chaos of the situation. Faith is what holds you steady when everything around you is shaking. It's what pushes you to believe there's something greater ahead, even when the road behind you is filled with disappointment. Faith isn't passive, it's a spiritual weapon that slices through anxiety and takes hold of peace that surpasses all understanding. When worry tells you that your best days are behind you, faith declares that God is just getting started. When worry whispers, what if it all falls apart? Faith shouts back, what if it all comes together? Faith doesn't rely on what you see with your eyes. It leans on what you know in your spirit. It recognizes that God has already made a promise, and He never fails to finish what He starts. Worry locks the door to your destiny, but faith kicks it open. Worry will make you settle for survival, but faith pushes you into purpose. When you're under pressure, worry wants to paralyze you, but faith activates you. Faith says, move even when it's uncomfortable, trust even when it's uncertain, believe even when it doesn't make sense. That's the power of living by faith instead of fear. You can't stop worry from knocking, but you don't have to invite it in. Faith sets a guard at the gate of your mind. It filters your thoughts and refuses to let fear dictate your future. Worry sees the storm and builds a bunker. Faith sees the storm and builds a boat. Worry waits for the rain to stop. Faith dances in the downpour, knowing that even the storm is serving God's plan. There's a constant war between worry and faith, but you get to choose who wins. Every thought, every decision, every step you take is either moving you deeper into anxiety or further into peace. Worry will always show up with reasons to quit, but faith will always show up with reminders of why you can't. Faith reminds you that if God brought you this far, He's not about to leave you now. We often walk through life carrying burdens that were never ours to bear. The weight of fear, regret, control, and shame presses on our shoulders, and we keep pushing forward like it's our responsibility to fix everything and everyone. But God never asked us to carry what he already lifted at the cross. We keep grasping for control when God has already declared, "It is finished." He's not waiting on us to handle what he already handled. We spend countless nights worrying about the outcome of situations that are already under divine authority. We stress over closed doors, broken relationships, financial pressure, and unanswered questions. But the victory has already been secured. God didn't call us to carry the cross. He called us to follow the one who did. When we try to carry what Jesus already conquered, we're telling him that his work isn't enough, that we somehow need to add our anxiety to his achievement. This is not about ignoring responsibility. It's about understanding divine alignment. We do our part in obedience, but we let him handle the outcome. When you try to carry the whole weight of your life on your back, you're stepping outside of trust. You're telling God you'll take it from here. But he never asked for that. He asked for surrender, not striving. He asked for faith, not fear. He called you to walk in freedom, not to live enslaved by pressures he already broke through. There is no prize in exhaustion. There's no medal for carrying more than you were built to hold. The Savior already bled for your peace, for your healing, for your future. Why are you bleeding emotionally and spiritually for something he already finished? You don't have to prove yourself to God. He's already proven his love for you. He didn't just win your eternity. He secured your everyday. Your battles aren't yours alone. They're his battlegrounds. Trying to carry what belongs to God only leads to burnout, disappointment, and spiritual fatigue. It distracts you from your assignment because you're too consumed with trying to control everything that's out of your hands. You're not called to be the answer. You're called to trust the answer. You're not the foundation. God is. And when you let go of the pressure to be everything, you finally make room for him to be everything. It's time to unload the burdens of insecurity, fear of the future, and guilt from the past. You've been dragging chains he already broke. You've been wearing a weight he already lifted. Faith is not just trusting God with what you can't do. It's also releasing to him what he's already done. He conquered death. He conquered sin. He conquered fear. What makes you think he can't handle what's on your plate today? Some of the burdens you're carrying didn't come from God. They came from people, expectations, and lies. The enemy would love for you to believe that you have to earn your worth through performance and perfection. But God didn't ask you to carry that. He called you to rest in him. His yoke is easy. His burden is light. If what you're carrying is crushing you, it didn't come from him. You were never meant to be the savior of your situation. That job is already filled. So stop dragging yesterday into today and stop dragging tomorrow's troubles into the present. God already stepped into your future and conquered what's coming. He already stood in your past and redeemed what was broken. He's not asking you to carry the cross again. He's asking you to walk in the freedom of what he already carried for you. Faith doesn't wait until all the lights turn green before it moves. It doesn't sit back until the blueprint is crystal clear. Faith moves when God says move, even if the details are still unfolding. Obedience isn't about understanding everything. It's about trusting the one who sees everything. Too often, we delay action because we want full confirmation before commitment. But faith requires motion before manifestation. God doesn't always give step 2 until you take step 1. He told Abraham to go, but didn't show him exactly where. He told Peter to step out of the boat, but didn't calm the storm first. That's how faith works. It's a decision to trust God's voice more than your own reasoning. If you're waiting for perfect clarity, you may never move. Obedience is the bridge between the promise and the fulfillment, even when the road ahead looks foggy. We often ask God for a sign, but He's looking for surrender. We want the full picture before we say yes, but He wants our yes before He reveals the full picture. Faith says, I don't have to know how. It's enough to know who. The path might look unstable, but if God told you to walk it, He will make it secure under your feet. Obedience isn't about convenience. It's about commitment, even when it costs you comfort. Clarity can become a crutch when you rely on it more than you rely on God. We make plans, write goals, analyze outcomes, and try to calculate our next move. But sometimes God interrupts your strategy with a call to simply trust and obey. The breakthrough you're waiting for may not come from your logic, but from your leap of faith. That leap may feel risky, but staying still when God says move is the real danger. When you walk by faith, you learn that obedience brings clarity, not the other way around. Each step you take in obedience reveals more of God's plan. He never promised to show you everything up front, but He did promise to be with you every step. Faith requires you to believe that His presence is enough, even when His plan is hidden. When you move in obedience, heaven moves with you. God is not asking you to have it all figured out. He's asking you to follow. You don't need to see the full staircase to take the first step. The door may not be open yet, but obedience puts your hand on the knob. The waters may not be parted yet, but obedience brings you to the edge. Obedience is the sign that your faith is alive. It's the evidence that you trust God more than your fears and doubts. There's power in saying yes before you have all the answers. Faith doesn't wait until it's easy. It moves because it's right. When God speaks, delay is disobedience. Partial obedience is still rebellion. Faith is fully surrendered, even when the path looks unfamiliar. It's the kind of trust that says, God, I'll go, even if I don't know where this leads. I'll speak, even if my voice shakes. I'll step out, even if I can't yet see the ground beneath me. What separates the faithful from the fearful is obedience in uncertainty. It's not about being fearless. It's about being faithful in spite of fear. It's about moving forward not because you have all the facts, but because you believe in the faithfulness of God. When you walk in obedience, you're saying, God, I trust your voice more than I trust my vision. And that kind of faith doesn't wait. It walks. Delays can feel like silence, like a closed heaven and unanswered prayers. You wait and wonder if God has forgotten you, if maybe you missed your moment or made a wrong turn. But what you call a delay, God calls preparation. He's not denying your breakthrough. He's building the foundation for it. A delay doesn't mean God has changed His mind. It means He's still working behind the scenes to align everything for your good. We often assume that waiting is wasted time, but in the kingdom, waiting is working. God uses delays to develop your character, stretch your faith, and teach you how to depend on Him completely. He's not just preparing the blessing for you. He's preparing you for the blessing. If He gave it too soon, you might mishandle it. What looks like a pause is really a process, and the process is just as important as the promise. When Joseph was thrown in a pit, sold as a slave, and locked in a prison, it looked like delay after delay. But every delay was positioning him for destiny. God was writing a story far greater than Joseph could see in the moment. Sometimes God will delay your elevation until your humility is deep enough to carry it. The delay isn't to punish you, it's to protect what He placed inside of you. His timing is never off, it's always exact. God's delays test your trust. Will you still worship when the answer doesn't come right away? Will you still believe when the door stays shut? Faith that only works on your timeline isn't faith. It's convenience. Real faith says, even in the waiting, I know you're working. Even in the silence, I know you're speaking. Trusting God in delay is trusting His character when you can't trace His hand. Sometimes the delay is about things you can't see. Maybe He's softening hearts, rearranging circumstances, or removing what would have destroyed you later. There are layers to His plan, and most of them are invisible while you wait. That's why it takes faith to be still, faith to keep praying, faith to keep walking with no visible progress. The delay is not empty. It's full of divine movement you just haven't seen yet. You don't have to understand the delay to trust the outcome. If you knew what God was protecting you from or preparing you for, you'd thank Him for every not yet. The doors that didn't open, the people who walked away, the promotions that passed you by, they weren't accidents. God has an appointed time for everything, and no amount of effort, fear, or frustration can rush what He has already set in motion. Delays can reveal what you truly believe. Do you believe God is only good when He's fast? Or do you believe He's good because He's faithful? Waiting seasons are often the most fertile grounds for spiritual growth. When you let go of the need to control the clock, you start walking in true trust. Delays strip you of your timeline so that you can walk on His, and His time is perfect, even when it doesn't match yours. What's delayed isn't denied. It's being divinely arranged. God is the master architect, and every moment you feel stuck, He's drawing up something greater. The delay is setting the stage. It's allowing the right people, the right timing, and the right purpose to align. You might feel like nothing is happening, but in heaven's eyes, everything is shifting. And when the setup is complete, what's yours will come. We like to be in control. We plan, strategize, and map out every detail because it gives us a false sense of security. We think that if we can just manage everything perfectly, we can avoid pain, avoid failure, avoid the unknown. But control is an illusion, and sooner or later, life reminds us that we're not the ones holding the wheel. That moment of crisis, that unexpected turn, that unanswered prayer, they all remind us that we were never meant to drive in the first place. There's a difference between taking responsibility and taking control. God wants your obedience, not your obsession with outcomes. He's not asking you to make everything work. He's asking you to follow Him in trust. Surrender isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's recognizing that God sees the entire road ahead while we only see what's right in front of us. And the longer we grip the wheel, the more we delay the direction He's trying to take us. Surrendering the wheel means letting go of your need to always understand. It means releasing the pressure to fix what's broken, to force what's delayed, or to chase what's walking away. God doesn't need your control. He needs your trust. You may not like the route He chooses. It might be longer, slower, or filled with twists you didn't expect. But His route is the one that leads to purpose, to protection, to peace. It's hard to surrender when your heart is tied to your own plans. But plans that aren't surrendered can become prisons. We get attached to what we think life should look like, and when it doesn't unfold that way, we panic. But God didn't promise comfort. He promised to lead. And when He leads, He doesn't just take you somewhere safe. He takes you somewhere significant, somewhere that your limited vision couldn't imagine. There is freedom in surrender. When you finally take your hands off the wheel, you stop being responsible for the results. You stop living in constant anxiety about every decision. You stop trying to force open doors God has already closed, and instead you start walking in divine rhythm. God doesn't want to be your co-pilot. He wants to be your guide, your navigator, your everything. When you let him drive, you move from striving to resting. Surrender doesn't mean you stop moving. It means you stop resisting. It means you move in the direction he's leading, not in the direction your fear is pulling. It's choosing obedience over understanding. It's waking up each day saying, God, I trust your route even when I don't recognize the road signs. When you surrender, you no longer live by sight. You live by faith, guided by a hand that never makes mistakes. Control wears you out, but trust restores your soul. You weren't created to live in a constant state of tension, always worrying about what's next. When you let God drive, you begin to experience the peace that surpasses understanding. It's not that storms disappear, it's that your focus shifts from the storm to the one who commands it. You stop asking, what if I mess this up? And start declaring, God's got this. God doesn't need a backseat driver. He needs a surrendered heart. He already knows the way, the turns, the timing, and the destination. All he asks is that you let go of the wheel and trust the journey. You don't have to force your life to happen. You don't have to control every detail. You just have to trust the one who wrote the story before you took your first breath.